Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. If you are walking through the darkest storm of your life, you better start smiling. If everything seems to be falling apart, if you feel like you're losing more than you're winning, you better start rejoicing, because that storm you're in, it's not a setback, it's a setup for something bigger than you can even imagine. Every great blessing in my life, every breakthrough, every victory, it didn't come when things were easy. No, it came when I was tested, when I was stretched, when I thought I had nothing left to give. And I know I'm not alone. Some of you here are facing battles that make you question if you're even on the right path. Some of you have prayed, fasted, cried out to God, but instead of things getting better, they got worse. Instead of doors opening, they slam shut. Instead of peace, you feel turmoil. Instead of progress, you feel stuck. But let me tell you something. When God is about to bless you, the enemy will try to break you. See, the storm is not there to destroy you. It's there to prepare you. It's there to strengthen you. It's there to build you up in ways you don't even realize yet. Because before God elevates you, He tests you. Before He increases you, He refines you. Before He puts more in your hands, He makes sure you can carry it. And you can't carry a big blessing with weak arms. You can't handle a great calling with a small mindset. You can't step into a new season with the same old habits, the same old fears, the same old doubts. That's why the storm comes. That's why everything seems to get harder right before the breakthrough. It's because God is making sure you're ready, because what He has for you is too great for you to fumble. And I know it hurts. I know it's frustrating. I know there are days when you feel like giving up. But you need to understand that if the pressure is increasing, that means the promise is near. If the heat is turning up, that means the gold is about to be purified. If the attack is intensifying, that means the enemy sees what's coming and he's trying to stop you before you get there. But here's the thing, he can't stop you. He can't take what God has already ordained for you. He can throw obstacles in your way. He can try to make you doubt. He can make things look impossible, but he cannot override God's plan. The only way you lose is if you give up. The only way you miss out is if you stop believing. That's why when the storm comes, you don't run from it. You don't curse it. You don't let it shake your faith. You stand in it. You endure it. You look it dead in the face and say, I know what this is. I know what's coming, and I'm not backing down. Because after every storm comes a clearing. After every battle comes a victory. After every test comes a testimony. And when you come out on the other side, when you finally see what God was preparing you for, you'll realize that every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of pain, it was all worth it. Because He was never punishing you, He was preparing you. He was never ignoring you, He was setting you up. And the moment you understand that is the moment you stop questioning the storm and start praising through it. So if you're in the storm right now, lift your head up, strengthen your faith, hold on to God's promise, because what's coming is bigger than you can imagine. And when it arrives, you'll realize the storm wasn't the problem, it was the path. And the blessing on the other side, that's what makes it all worth it. Faith is not about seeing the whole staircase. It's about taking the first step when you can't see beyond the next. See, God doesn't give us the full picture up front. If He did, we might run in the other direction. But He gives us glimpses. He places a dream in our hearts. He whispers a calling into our spirit. And then He waits. He waits to see if you will move. If you will step out when the world tells you to sit down. If you will trust Him when nothing makes sense. Some of you are waiting for a sign, but God is waiting for you to act. You see, faith is action. Faith is movement. And when you move, heaven moves with you. There are moments in life when God will put something on your heart, an idea, a vision, an opportunity, and it won't make any sense. It won't look logical. It won't seem practical, but deep down, you will feel it pulling you forward. That's the test. That's the moment where you have to decide if you're going to stay where it's comfortable or step into the unknown. Because here's the thing. God doesn't operate in comfort zones. He doesn't work in places where you already have control. He works in faith. He works in obedience. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave his home, his family, everything he knew, and go to a land he had never seen. No map, no details, just a promise. And Abraham could have said, "No, God, tell me where I'm going first. Give me the full plan, show me the route." But he didn't. He stepped out, he obeyed, and because of that, he became the father of nations. Some of you are waiting for God to show you every step before you move, but that's not how faith works. Some of you are holding back, saying, "God, when I have enough money, then I'll start. When the timing is perfect, then I'll go. When I feel ready, then I'll obey." But let me tell you something, you will never feel completely ready. The conditions will never be perfect, and if you wait for the ideal moment, you will miss what God has for you. Faith is stepping out when the road is unclear. It's saying yes before you see how it all works out. It's trusting that if God called you, He will make the way, and the moment you move, that's when doors start opening. That's when resources start showing up. That's when miracles start happening, because faith is not just believing, it's acting on that belief. Some of you have been sitting on dreams for years because you're afraid to fail, afraid to look foolish, afraid to take the first step. But fear and faith cannot exist in the same space. One will always drive the other out. So the question is, what are you going to choose? Fear will keep you stuck. Faith will move you forward. Fear will keep you in bondage. Faith will set you free. I know it's hard to step into the unknown. I know it's scary to trust God when you can't see the outcome. But let me tell you something. God has never failed. And if He put something inside of you, if He placed a vision in your heart, it's because He already made a way for it. You don't have to see the whole picture. You just have to trust the one who does. And when you move, when you take that first step, heaven will open up. Doors will unlock. The impossible will become possible. So don't wait for clarity. Don't wait for all the answers. Don't wait for approval from people who don't understand your calling. Move when God says move. Step out when He calls you. Because faith is the key that unlocks the blessing, and the only way to see what God has in store for you is to walk in obedience even when you can't see where the road leads. The moment you decide to step out in faith, to trust that God is leading you towards something greater, you have to be prepared for resistance. See, people like to talk about blessings, about favor, about abundance, but what they don't always tell you is that before every great breakthrough, there is a battle. Before every great victory, there is a struggle. Before God gives you something big, you will face obstacles that make you question whether you're even meant to receive it. You have to understand that when you are walking in your purpose, when you are stepping into the destiny God has for you, there will always be opposition. The enemy does not attack people who are standing still. He attacks people who are moving forward. So when you start seeing roadblocks, when you start facing unexpected setbacks, don't take that as a sign that you're on the wrong path. Take it as confirmation that you're exactly where you need to be, because the enemy only fights what he fears. Think about the story of Joseph. God gave him a dream that one day he would be in a position of great authority. But what happened next? His own brothers turned against him. They threw him into a pit, sold him into slavery, and he ended up in a foreign land, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed like everything in his life was moving in the opposite direction of the promise God had given him. But what Joseph didn't know was that every setback was part of the setup. Every betrayal, every delay, every painful moment was positioning him exactly where he needed to be. Some of you are in that place right now. You know God has called you to something greater, but everything around you is telling you otherwise. Maybe you've lost relationships. Maybe opportunities have dried up. Maybe doors that once seemed wide open have suddenly slammed shut. And you're asking yourself, God, if this is your plan for me, why does it feel like I'm losing? Why does it feel like everything is working against me? But what if I told you that everything happening right now is not working against you, it's working for you? See, sometimes God allows adversity because He knows that pressure creates diamonds. Fire refines gold. Struggle strengthens faith. He is not punishing you. He is preparing you. He is stretching you so that when the blessing comes, you are strong enough to hold it. Because let's be honest, if you received everything you prayed for right now, would you be ready? Would you be able to handle the responsibility, the weight, the pressure that comes with it? God knows what's ahead. He knows what you need to endure so that when He finally places the blessing in your hands, you won't drop it. Look at David. He was anointed to be king as a young boy, but he didn't step into that role immediately. No, he had to go through the wilderness. He had to fight battles. He had to run for his life. He had to experience seasons of waiting, of frustration, of hardship. But every single challenge prepared him for the throne. Every struggle shaped him into the leader God had called him to be. Some of you are in that process right now, and it feels like nothing is happening. It feels like the dream is slipping away. But I need you to understand this: delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. God's timing is perfect, and if He is making you wait, it's because what He has for you is worth the wait. But here's the thing: you can't quit in the middle of the process. You can't allow fear, frustration, or doubt to take you off course. The enemy will whisper lies in your ear. He will tell you that you're wasting your time, that you misunderstood God, that you should just settle for less because the promise is taking too long. But that's when you have to stand firm. That's when you have to remind yourself of the dream, of the vision, of the promise God gave you. Because His word does not return void. What He has spoken will come to pass. So if you're facing obstacles, if you feel like the weight is too heavy, if you're wondering why the struggle is so intense, take heart, because resistance is proof that you are moving in the right direction. The enemy wouldn't be fighting you this hard if he wasn't terrified of what's coming. And let me tell you, what's coming is bigger than you can imagine. What's coming will make every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt completely worth it. But you have to hold on. You have to keep pushing forward. You have to trust that what God has for you is already on its way, and nothing, not the enemy, not your past, not your mistakes, can stop it from reaching you. When God is about to bless you with something big, He will often take you through a season of separation. And this is one of the hardest parts of the journey, because it requires you to let go of what is familiar, to release the things and even the people that can't go where God is taking you. See, when you're stepping into a new level, not everyone around you is meant to go with you. Some people were only assigned to a previous chapter of your life, and if you try to hold on to them, they will only slow you down. Think about it. When a rocket is launching into space, there are multiple stages. And at a certain altitude, parts of the rocket have to detach, not because they were never useful, but because they were only designed to take it so far. If those parts don't fall away, they will become dead weight, preventing the rocket from reaching its full potential. And in the same way, there are relationships, habits, environments, and even mindsets that may have gotten you to this point, but they can't take you any further. Some of you are experiencing this right now. People who once supported you have suddenly become distant. Friends who used to encourage you now doubt you. Even family members might not understand your vision. And it's painful, it's confusing, but you need to recognize that when God is preparing you for something greater, He will often remove distractions. He will cut away the things that no longer serve your destiny. And if you try to hold on to what He is trying to remove, you will only delay your own breakthrough. Look at Jesus when He was about to perform one of His greatest miracles, raising a young girl from the dead. He walked into the house, and the room was full of people who were weeping, doubting, and mocking Him. And do you know what He did? He put them out. He cleared the room, because not everyone is meant to witness the miracle. Not everyone has the faith to see what God is about to do in your life. Some of you are trying to bring people into your next season who don't believe in what God is doing for you. You're trying to hold on to friendships that no longer align with your purpose. You're surrounding yourself with voices that speak doubt instead of faith, and then you wonder why you feel stuck. But listen, if God has been removing people from your life, stop chasing them. If doors have been closing, stop trying to force them open. When God takes something away, it's because He's making room for something better. Think about Abraham and Lot. God told Abraham to go to a land He would show him, but Abraham made the mistake of bringing Lot with him. And as long as Lot was with him, there was conflict, there was struggle. But the moment they separated, God spoke. The moment Lot was out of the picture, Abraham had clarity. Some of you are waiting for God to speak, but He's waiting for you to let go of your Lot. He's waiting for you to release what's been holding you back so that He can show you what's next. And I know it's not easy. It's not easy to walk away from people you love. It's not easy to leave behind what's comfortable. But you cannot step into your future while still clinging to your past. You cannot receive what God has for you while your hands are full of things that no longer serve you. Sometimes the very thing you are afraid to let go of is the thing that's keeping you from the blessing you've been praying for. So ask yourself, what is God trying to separate you from? What relationships, habits, or distractions are preventing you from fully stepping into your purpose? What is He asking you to walk away from so that He can give you something greater? Because when you trust Him enough to let go, when you surrender what's no longer meant for you, that's when He will fill your hands with something far greater than you ever imagined. That's when you'll realize that everything you lost was nothing compared to what He was preparing for you all along. When God is about to give you something big, you will begin to feel an undeniable shift in your spirit. It's that stirring deep inside you, that restlessness that tells you something is about to change. You can't quite explain it, but you know you're not the same person you used to be. The things that once satisfied you no longer do. The places that once felt comfortable now feel restrictive. The conversations that once excited you now seem empty. That's because God is preparing you for elevation, and when He does that, He starts by changing you from the inside out. You may find yourself growing distant from certain people, not because you don't care about them anymore, but because your spirit no longer aligns with theirs. You may find that the goals you once had no longer excite you, because God is planting new visions, bigger dreams, and greater purpose within you. You might even start feeling frustrated, not because something is wrong, but because you know deep down that you were made for more. That frustration is not there to discourage you, it's there to push you. It's there to tell you that you are outgrowing your current environment, that you are being called to step into a new level. Think about a caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly. When it's in the cocoon, it is no longer a caterpillar, but it's not yet a butterfly. It's in transition. It's in a process of transformation, and during that time, it is completely confined, completely isolated. It cannot go back to what it was, but it's not quite ready to fly. Some of you are in that stage right now. You feel trapped between what was and what's coming. You know God has something greater for you, but you're not there yet, and the waiting feels unbearable. But what you don't realize is that God is doing His greatest work in the unseen. He is strengthening you, refining you, preparing you. And when the time is right, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and ready to step into the blessing He has been preparing for you all along. But here's the challenge. Will you trust Him in the process? Will you hold on to faith even when you can't see the outcome? Because that's what true faith is. Faith is not just believing when everything makes sense. Faith is believing when nothing makes sense. Faith is standing firm when doubt is screaming at you to give up. Faith is choosing to trust that the shift you feel is not for nothing, that God is not just changing your circumstances, He is changing you. You may feel like you're losing control, but that's because God is teaching you to surrender. You may feel like things are falling apart, but that's because God is tearing down what is no longer meant to be part of your journey. You may feel like you're walking in uncertainty, but that's because God is leading you to a place where you must rely on Him completely. When you sense that shift, don't resist it. Don't fight to hold on to what God is trying to move you past. Embrace it, step into it, because it's in that shift that your breakthrough is coming. When you feel the stirring, when you sense the discomfort, when you notice that the old things no longer fit, that is God's way of telling you that you are on the edge of something greater. That is your sign that the blessing is closer than you think. But you must be willing to move forward, to leave behind what no longer serves you, and to trust that what is coming is bigger than you could have ever imagined.